You're not even going to get the countdown. You're not even going to get the countdown during the stream. I know we normally do the countdowns before the stream. You get the 30-second warning. Apologize for running a little bit late. Was live on the Giants Collective channel that I do over there, discussing the recent turn of events. Had several people on Twitter ask me to go live. Obviously, huge news. First off, I want to say thank you to everybody for being here. Excited to be back on here live talking about the New York Giants with you guys. These were always my favorite things to do when I did YouTube more regularly, to get the one-on-one with the subscribers. You guys basically act as my co-host when I do these shows. So excited to get on here, chop it up with you guys about the big major news for the New York Giants. And I hope you guys are as excited as I am. If you followed my channel going back to 2018, I think I started, 20, whatever it was, you've known, if you follow me that long, that I am a gigantic Harbaugh fan, whether it be Jim or John. I was a big proponent for the New York Giants to go out there and get Jim Harbaugh back in 2020 when it wasn't as popular to do so, before Michigan started winning championships. Always loved what he did with the Stanford Cardinals, revitalizing, obviously, Alex Smith's career when he went to the San Francisco 49ers. Then he goes to Michigan, wins a title. Now he's back with the Chargers, and I'm sure they're going to do great things. And when you think of John Harbaugh, it's the same thing, man. You think winner. Special teams coordinator who got picked up by the Baltimore Ravens, didn't leave that place for 18 years. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think he's only one of 7 coaches in the history of the NFL that has coached for the same team for 18 years straight in the history of the NFL. And I think he's only the 4th or 5th in the Super Bowl era. So that tells you all you need to know. And he did it with multiple quarterbacks. He has had several great coordinators. He knows how to build a staff. He's exactly what I wanted the New York Giants to get. When we heard about the realistic candidates, before John Harbaugh became available, before Mike Tomlin became available, even though I didn't love the guy, I get it. He's not the most appealing guy. He's not the most handsome guy to look at. He was a former Dallas Cowboy head coach. But of the candidates that I heard, I said I would go with Mike McCarthy out of the names that we heard initially, for the simple reason I wanted the Giants to bring in a guy that had head coaching experience before, right? You want them to do something different. The last 4 head coaches that the New York Giants brought in, you had McAdoo, offensive coordinator, no head coaching experience. You had Shermer. I think he had 2 years of head coaching experience with the Cleveland Browns. But we all know that's not why he got the job. He got the job because of the success he had as an offensive coordinator with all the, all the success he had with all the various quarterbacks that he coached. Nick Foles, we all remember. I think he had the 3rd highest quarterback rating in the history of the NFL under Shermer. Had the great year with Case Keenum. But again, no proven commodity in terms of a head coach. You go to Joe Judge, special teams coordinator, similar to John Harbaugh when he got the job with the Baltimore Ravens. But of course, it was a big swing. And it was kind of, when you think about it in hindsight, even though I didn't hate Joe Judge, I was rooting for Joe Judge, and I don't think Joe Judge may have gotten the fairest shake. He wasn't the right hire in that scenario, for the same reason why I feel the New York Giants had to go with an experienced coach in this situation. You had just fired a head coach after you just drafted a rookie quarterback. He only had 1 year after they fired Shermer. You had to go with a safer option there, and bring in a guy that has experience, a guy that has built a football team before. And we all know that, how the Daniel Jones story went. And we were all scared that the Giants may do something similar to Jackson Dart after Dable got fired. Rumors that they may fire Shane. You may have a new regime, yada, 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 yada. Instead, the Giants bring in a dream scenario for a young quarterback with Jackson Dart. So we'll go on and on throughout the stream. But of course, I love the hire. I knew in my heart of hearts, I really, really, truly believed the New York Giants were going to get him, because this time around, unless, the Bills fired McDermott, then things could have changed. Or if the Eagles, fired Sirianni, or if the Packers fired LaFleur, then things change. But of the teams that we knew before the playoffs started that were looking for head coaching vacancies, when you looked around the league, the Giants were the most appealing job. They just were. Unlike other years when the Giants were far from the most appealing job. You look around, you say, okay, Jackson Dart, potential franchise quarterback. We all know that Harbaugh loved him from all the reports. He spent like 9 hours talking to him. Malik Neighbors, I know he was hurt this year, but a guy that is as talented as anybody at the wide receiver position. Andrew Thomas, franchise left tackle. And of course, we could all agree, may not have lived up to our expectations this year, but there's potential with that pass rush. Abdul Carter showed glimpses there late in the year. Brian Burns had a tremendous year. We all hope Dexter Lawrence could bounce back and be the Dex that we all know and love going into this year. So I just, to me, it seemed like the most appealing job. In the end, it seemed like it was coming down to the Falcons, the Giants, and the Titans. And you look at the Falcons, you say, okay, they finished the year strong. But one, if I'm a head coach looking at that job, they fired Raheem Morris, I think, prematurely. So if I'm Harbaugh, is that appealing? You fired a guy after they won, I think, 4 straight down the stretch. With a team without a quarterback. He did it with Kirk Cousins. So I didn't view that as an appealing job without a quarterback, long-term quarterback of the future. You look at the Titans, and a lot of people brought up the cap space. My outlook on cap space is this. Whenever somebody tells me a team has $120 million in cap space, which I think the Titans have, I question that, and I say, well, why do they have $120 million in cap space? Because usually when a team has $120 million in cap space, it means they have nobody worth retaining. So, and that's, likely the case with the Tennessee Titans. Of course, Cam Ward has potential. But when I saw that those were the 3 finalists, I was beyond confident that John Harbaugh was going to choose the New York Giants, both for their situation and their, historical significance. So thrilled that he's here. I think the New York Giants are back. I think they are back. I think this is the biggest move the New York Giants have made, as I said on Twitter today, since 2004. And I'm a fan at the end of the day. I'm as biased as hell. It's why you guys watch me. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. Football is completely unpredictable. John Harbaugh may fall completely on his face. But right now, today, I feel optimistic. And I think when I look at the history of the New York Giants, I think this is going to be, we're going to look back at it and we're going to say this is the most impactful move they had since 2004 when they hired Tom Coughlin and they drafted Eli Manning. I think he's a guy that could get this franchise back to where they're supposed to be, which is competing for Super Bowls. VT Jake, thank you so much for the $20 donation. And I didn't even say it. I was so excited to go live to talk to you guys after everybody on Twitter was asking me to go live today. Of course, talk about John Harbaugh. I didn't even do the stand-up. I did not even do the stand-up. I just realized it. And I haven't looked at the chat yet. Maybe some people said that. So we got to do it real quick for John Harbaugh. Stand up! New York Giants fans. What is going on, Giants fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Today, we're going to discuss John Harbaugh after he coached for the Baltimore Ravens for 18 years. And Tyler Luke graced us with his presence with a missed field goal. The New York Giants were given the opportunity to bring in one of the greatest coaches in the history of the NFL. There's a little throwback from some of the videos. Jake, man, thank you so much, man, for the $20 donation, man. Appreciate you for being here, buddy. And Cy Guy, man, thank you so much, man, for being a member. He says, Happy New Year's, Chris. Happy New Year's to you as well. JT Carroll says, and so we begin the Harbaugh chapter. I can't wait. I can't wait. I know you guys are, I'm sure, John. This was like one of the few times when I went on Giants Twitter and I was like, wow. Like the Giants fan base is like unanimously in love with this. Like you think back over the course of history, at least since I've been on Twitter, I've probably been active since 2019, 2020. I can't think of a time where there wasn't friction from within the fan base, when it came to a major decision. This seemed like it was like 95%. Let's go and get him. And it makes sense. I mean, the guy's a Hall of Fame head coach. But thank you, JT Carroll. Thank you for being here, man. Thank you to everybody for being here. Going to shout out everybody in the chat in a second. Just want to make sure I catch up with all these. Taco says, let's go, Chris. Good to have you back, Miss these. We got Harbaugh. Now let's get good coordinators. No Bolin as DC, please. They're not going to hire Bolin as the DC. He may stay on as a defensive assistant. I actually thought he did a pretty good job when he got the opportunity as a defensive coordinator, but ultimately that'll be left up to Harbaugh. But Harbaugh's going to bring in a guy. When you look at the course of history with Harbaugh, a lot of his coordinators are former guys that have been coordinators or head coaches, or mainly coordinators. But I think he's going to bring in a guy with a little bit more, of a history than a guy like Bolin. I'd be surprised if Bolin's the defensive coordinator, but he did do a decent job for the Giants. I wouldn't mind if he retained him as an assistant. But the guy that needs to stay on, I think we could all agree in the chat on this. The guy that needs to stay on in this coaching staff, and I said it on the Giants Collective show before earlier when we were talking, and I think this is one of the other things that I think Giants fans are pretty unanimous on. Carmen Brissot needs to stay as the offensive line coach for the New York Giants. Has to happen. The Giants this year, and maybe the stat changed towards the end of the year, they were like top 3 or 4 in pass protection, at least according to PFF. Take that for what you will. But we're not used to that, right? So he did a tremendous job. Got to keep Illuminor as well, but I really hope they keep Russillo. Bob says, glad you're back, buddy. We missed you, but it's John, not Jim. Like your time. Oh, did I say Jim? My bad. I was in such a rush after work. Of course, I know it's John Harbaugh, as I'm sure I've said his name 19 times during this live stream. So I'll go back and change that after the live stream. But yeah, I would have been excited with Jim as well. But love John. And Eric, thank you very much, man. Happy New Year's, Chris. I am thrilled with this hiring, and I am glad of getting this done fast and first. So hopefully this will allow John, to get his first choices in OC and DC, barring a head coach hiring of his choices. Go Giants. I mean, Eric, I think it's we've already heard it, and I thought it before we started to hear it, because the reports came out when the Ravens fired him. A big reason why the Ravens fired him to begin with was because he wasn't willing to make any changes to his coaching staff. That's at least what I read on Twitter. So I'm like, okay, well, if the Giants hire him, he's clearly going to bring Monken here, unless Monken gets a job, somewhere else. So I expect it to be Monken, and I'm going to have no arguments towards that, right? I mean, the Baltimore Ravens, did you forget, 2 years ago had one of the best offenses in the NFL. I think they were first in yards, third in points. They scored over 500 points. Lamar Jackson was runner-up for MVP that year. The year before, he won the MVP. So Monken's clearly a guy who's had some success as an offensive coordinator. So and he has a rapport with Harbaugh. So I'm completely for it. LA Sports says, Chris, the New York Football Giants are back. Dart, Scat, Neighbors, AT, Carter, Burns, Dex, and John Harbaugh. We are so back. Playoff contenders next year. There's no reason. And before I continue, let me say hello to everybody in the chat. Appreciate all you guys. Thank you guys for being here. Jeff in the chat, Jay in the chat. King Trizzy, he's a regular, man. He's always in my live streams when I used to go live all the time. Terry in the chat, Rafael DeLuna, of course. Karen in the chat, Evan in the chat, Robert P in the chat, Ray W, talk about a regular. He's always in my streams. Solarite, Sanpit, Luan, thank you for being here. VTJ, thanks, my man. Dave Laws in the chat. Jim Banna, he's a regular as well. Appreciate all you guys. Thank you guys for being here. I always try to make it a point to, shout everybody out, during the live streams. But getting back to your point, there is no reason, LA Sports. And listen, if I fall on my face, I'll fall on my face. That's part of being a fan, right? We're fanatics. But there is no reason to think that the New York Giants can't at least contend for the playoffs next year. Why can't they? I look around the NFL. You guys tell me in the chat, who is the powerhouse right now in the NFL? When the playoffs started, I was like, who the hell is going to win the Super Bowl? Who the hell is going to win the Super Bowl? Because there are no powerhouses right now in the NFL. And I look at the Chicago Bears this year. They get Ben Johnson. All of a sudden, they win the NFC North. You would have said you're crazy going into the year to pick that. You would have said Detroit Lions. You would have said Green Bay Packers. I look at the New England Patriots. They get Mike Vrabel. They win the division. They beat out the Buffalo Bills. So why can't the Giants compete to make the playoffs next year? You bring in a Hall of Fame head coach, the 14th most wins in the history of the NFL. You got a quarterback, which, by the way, rightfully so. I think a lot of Giants fans may not be completely sold on Jackson Dart, right? He was a near second-round pick. He had an impressive rookie year, but, you want to see more before you completely buy in. But I think this should instill more confidence in you as a fan in Jackson Dart. Because John Harbaugh, the second he was fired from the Baltimore Ravens, got 9 phone calls. A third of the league wanted him to be the head coach. He got to pick his spot. And if you don't think Jackson Dart was a determining factor and probably the primary factor for why he chose the New York Giants job, you're out of your mind. And John Harbaugh, you don't think he knows what a good quarterback looks like? This is a guy that coached Joe Flacco, won a Super Bowl. He's coached Lamar Jackson. He's won multiple MVPs. So for John Harbaugh to pick the Giants job, I mean, I think he's saying, I got a lot of confidence in Jackson Dart. So I think it gives me even more confidence that Dart's going to be that guy. So excited to see what Dart could do in year 2 with a healthy Neighbors. Cole Gordon says, Chris is back. Giants are back. Missed these streams. Thank you for being here, Cole, man. Miss you too, buddy. Let's see. Alicia, I saw you in the other stream. Appreciate you for being here. Hey, Chris, again, who do we draft at 5? Who knows at this point, right? I mean, a lot of people are going to point to the Ravens draft history and they're going to say, well, they took Kyle Hamilton 14th overall. So that, of course, opens up the possibility to draft a guy like Downs, who many would argue is, if not the most talented player in this draft, among one of the most talented, but doesn't historically play a position that you would draft that early, right? And if you look at Joe Shane's draft track record, he traditionally goes for, offensive line, quarterback, pass rusher, corner, positions that you would, traditionally value high, in early in a draft. So based off Shane's track record, you would think they won't go safety, but based off Harbaugh's, maybe they would if they feel he's that transcendent of a player. You look at the impact that Hamilton's had with the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think they're identical players. Hamilton's bigger. I think he's 6'2", 6'3". Downs is 6 foot, but he's great. I mean, if you watch, any of the Ohio State games this year, he stands out. He pops. So he's a possibility. Of course, wide receiver is a possibility. But if I had to guess right now today, again, this is subject to change. I got to see what they do in free agency in the draft. But I look at not just Harbaugh's history. I think Harbaugh's a guy that definitely prioritizes the trenches, and which is why I'm a big fan of his. But look at what the teams around the league did this year when they inherited the young quarterbacks. What did the Chicago Bears do? They invested heavily in the offensive line. What did the New England Patriots do? They drafted a tackle, right? Near the top of the draft. If I had to guess today, I'm leaning line. But when I factor in Harbaugh, the young quarterback, you want to be able to maximize his potential, but everything's up for grabs. They could certainly go wide receiver. They could go linebacker. They could go edge. They got to take the best player available, period, end of story. But if I had to guess right now, I would actually lean slightly towards the offensive line. But I got to see free agency and everything else. Pete, thank you so much, man. Pete's the man, dude. Thank you for being here. He says, buddy, miss you. Was it a losing? No, it had nothing to do with losing. The Giants have lost since I've been on YouTube. Giants have been the worst organization in sports, or among one of the worst organizations in sports since I've been on. No, I just wanted a break, and it was more so I started a job, and I just wanted a break. Maybe this will inspire me to come back on and want to do content more regularly. I think it will. I'm excited, man. I'm so excited for John Harbaugh. I'm excited to talk about this team, and we'll see. But no, I mean, of course, it's not fun to talk about a team that constantly loses, but they've lost since I've been talking about this team. If the Giants return to relevance and success, can we expect the resurrection of your channel? Wishing you blessings and the best no matter what. Pete, man, appreciate you, man. You've always been a great supporter. I know you're a huge movie guy as well. We always talk movies in the streams when you're in here. I got plenty of movies to talk to you about. Been watching a lot of those lately, but appreciate you for being here. And yeah, I don't know if you never know. Maybe I will do. I'm not gonna be doing 2 videos a day like I used to do, but maybe I will do weekly or twice a week podcast in the near future. I think that's definitely on the table, and probably gonna happen. Toasty says maybe biggest New York sports coach hire since ever. I'd have to think about that. The biggest New York coach ever, like in my lifetime. I'm just thinking of all the sports. There hasn't been a bigger hire by the Mets. I'm a Mets fan, so that's the first thing team I think of outside of the Giants. I don't think, right? I mean, Buck Showalter was a pretty big name, but he's not at this level. He never won a World Series. I don't think the Mets have had one on this level. The Yankees, Joe Girardi, no, of course not, was not on this level. He had success with the Marlins, but didn't win any championships there. Torre was, of course, a great coach for the Yankees, but when they hired him, he wasn't of this level. The Knicks, Thibodeau, really good coach, but again, not this level. Now, to be fair, the Knicks did hire a lot of big-name coaches throughout the course of their horrible history. None of them worked out. Lenny Wilkins was a great coach. D'Antoni had success with the Phoenix Suns. Larry Brown, of course, won a championship with the Detroit Pistons, didn't work out with the New York Knicks. So the Knicks did have some big name coaches, but they were a dysfunctional organization and it didn't work out. But Toasty, this is right up there. This is right up there for sure. You're talking about a guy that coached with the Baltimore Ravens for 18 straight years, won a Super Bowl. He's been among one of the best coaches in the NFL during that period of time. So, and he's still young enough where you can get 8 to 10 years out of him like we did with a Tom Coughlin. So it's a hire that you should be excited about. And let's hope it works out. Thank you for being here, Toasty. Appreciate it, man. Let's see. Mike Nixon, thank you for being a member, said, what's up, Tate? I missed you, buddy. Hope all is well. I will say this. I hope to God he doesn't bring the DC of Baltimore. I don't think they'll bring him. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about him. I do not think they'll why does the name escape me? Is it Orr? I heard mixed reviews about him. I do not think the Giants will hire him. Of course, he's going to come up because he hired him as the DC, I think, for the last 2 years, but I doubt they hire him. And Chris says, can Banks be resurrected or is he damaged goods? I mean, it's possible. Do I expect it? Am I predicting it? No, I don't. I was a big Banks fan when they drafted him. I did think he would rebound this year. He clearly did not. Good kick returner. That's like the nicest thing I have to say about him. But no, I'm leaning no. But what I will say is we've seen a lot of Giants players leave the Giants and get a lot better because of coaching. Well, now we got a good coach. So hopefully he can rebound and resurrect his career. We're going to need it. That secondary, Giants have got to sign Cordell Flott. I mean, you look at that secondary, my God, at the cornerback position, you've got a lot, a lot of questions there. So hopefully Banks could rebound, because I think that's the biggest weakness in the defense, as well as the linebacking core. Bobby Okereke is not near the player he was. McFadden coming off an injury. We clearly need to improve the depth on the interior part of that defensive line as well. So we all know the Giants have things to work on. But the thing that is most inspiring about that defense is, I think, the most important position, and what you think about when you think New York Giants. I think that's going to continue to ascend, obviously, with Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, and Dexter Lawrence. So got to fill in those other holes behind them. But I do think the pass rush will be even better next year. Lusk says, Chris, I found your channel in the dark times of Giants football. We made it, brother. Let the good times roll. Let's go, Giants. I've said we've made it before, so screw it. We made it. We're back. Giants football's back. We got John Harbaugh. We're back, baby. Let's roll. I'm excited, man. I'm excited for next year. I think you can conclusively say, looking at the division right now, we have the best coach. We have the best coach. Nick Sirianni sucks. I don't care that he's won a Super Bowl. He sucks. Yeah, we have the best coach. We have the best coach. We have the best coach in the division. And Jackson Dart, I think, is only going to be better next year. So I'm not necessarily going to say we're going to win the division next year. Obviously, that would be a big jump for a team that's picking I think we're picking 5th in the draft this year. But big jumps happen, right? Chicago Bears, New England Patriots, so on and so forth. But I think we're going to be in the mix. And I think John Harbaugh is going to give us an opportunity to compete late into the season for the division. I think the division's tightening up for sure. And V-Man says, the thing that makes Harbaugh a good hire is through his career, he has shown a capacity to evolve as a head coach. Last thing you want is a head coach who is stuck in his ways. To me, the most impressive thing, V-Man, and I said it on the other channel, when I look at John, at least recently, the most impressive thing for me with John Harbaugh, you just hit it on the head in terms of the adjustment. The adjustment that he made in Lamar Jackson's rookie season. You couldn't have you talk about complete opposites in terms of style of play at the quarterback position. Joe Flacco, Lamar Jackson, for him to be able to make that change mid-season and completely morph the style of the offense that the Ravens played. I don't have it in front of me, but I remember the Ravens, as soon as Jackson came in, they won a bunch of games. They made the playoffs. That was very impressive that year for him to make that adjustment in season the way that he did. And of course, a guy that's coached as long as he did and had the success that he had, how could you not be excited about a hire like that? And I see a lot of people in the other chat say, well, he got fired for a reason. When you get hired as a head coach, you're going to get fired. It's just the nature of the business. I just told you there's only, I think, 4 or 5 coaches in the history of the NFL since the Super Bowl era that have been at the same destination as long as John Harbaugh was. Andy Reid got fired for a reason. Eagles fans couldn't wait to get rid of him. He went to and he was a great coach there. Went to several NFC championship games, went to a Super Bowl, went to the Chiefs. Look at the success he had. Many argue he's the second greatest coach of all time. Mike Vrabel got fired for a reason from the Tennessee Titans. That doesn't mean he can't be a good head coach. He ends up with New England, and look what he's doing this year. He may win a Super Bowl. So, yeah, he got fired for a reason. Every coach gets fired for a reason. But John Harbaugh is, I think, a guy that's that could set this team back to where they need to be, which, like I said earlier, is competing for Super Bowls. I'm so excited about it. Rich Rod says, re-sign Jermaine Illuminor, Wandell, Flott, draft Downs. I mean, ideally, yes. There's a thing called the salary cap, Rich, so we'll see. I would love to have those 3 guys back. Those are the 3 most important free agents that the New York Giants have. I would change the priority. I don't know if you listed it by priority there. I would have Illuminor 1. I think it's imperative that the Giants keep that offensive line together, especially the tackles. We'll see with Marcus Bowe, but I don't think he has the size yet, and I think he's too big of a risk year 2 with Dart just to throw into the starting lineup. I think they got to bring Jermaine Illuminor back. You got to find a way to bring him back. I would list Flott as the second biggest priority of those 3 names because of what I just talked about. We're so thin at that position, and it's such an important position at the cornerback spot. And I would list Wandell as 3. But I do think Wandell is important. It's going to come down to his market, right? How much is a team going to be willing to pay? And I think teams are going to be willing to spend pretty high on Wandell. But the one thing I keep saying, especially with Harbaugh coming here, 1, Shane drafted Wandell. 2, and I've said it a couple of times now, in the NFL, like, I can't think of a receiver that is as close in similarity to Wan'Dale as Zay Flowers is. Ravens, John Harbaugh being a big part of that, drafted that guy in the first round. So he clearly values receivers with a similar skill set to a guy like a Wan'Dale Robinson. So I wouldn't rule it out. And I'd welcome it, especially being that you don't know if Neighbors is going to be ready to go and if he's going to be, he's going to be in his full self from the beginning of the year. But I think it'll come down to his market. I don't know if the Giants are going to be willing to go, to a certain price point. Ralph says, what are we doing with Wan'Dale? Stand up? Yeah, we just talked about that. I think that's a major question mark still. And I'm leaning he might get north of $20 million a year. Because he's young. He's one of the better available wide receivers. Who knows, man? The free agent market is completely unpredictable. His floor, I think, is $16 million. Because Shakir on the Bills, I think, got, $15 million a year? Similar production. We're now into the future in terms of the market. I think his floor is 16 a year. And I think he could push north of 20. It's going to depend on the market and how much teams value him. We'll see. But I'd love to have him back, but I could understand if it gets to a certain price point why they wouldn't bring him back. Nobody says if we improve the secondary and the middle linebackers, there's no way we don't make the playoffs, right? I mean, it's the NFL, right? Surprising things happen. But when you have a great coach like Harbaugh, let me ask the chat this. I got to scroll down so I can see your guys' reactions and I'll catch up. If John Harbaugh was the coach this year for the New York Giants, everything was the same. Malik Neighbors got hurt. Jackson Dart started week 3 or 4, whenever we threw him in. Everything was the same. Same schedule, everything. How many wins do you think the Giants have this year? Do you think we lose the Cowboys game? Do you think we lose the Broncos game? There's at least 2 or 3 other games that we had a lot of games that we blew that I think if we had a better coach, we probably don't. So if John Harbaugh was the Giants coach this year, how many wins do you think the Giants have? So I say that. I say, okay, this wasn't a very good team. I think we have at least 6 or 7 wins this year if Harbaugh was the head coach. You bring him aboard with what I think will be an improved roster next year, second year with Dart. I mean, I don't think the playoffs are out of question. That's for sure. Let me see. And Goblin, and I think my chat froze, so I'm going to pull it up on my phone. Sometimes that happens on here. Let me pull it up on my phone. 1 second, guys. 1 second, guys. Because I was looking for your guys' reactions, and either I stopped the live stream by accident or nobody's in here anymore, which I doubt is the case. So let me pull up my live stream chat real quick. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, I got it here. So 15 to 18. I don't know about all that, Albin. 19, 10, 8 or 9 wins. I think I would lean more towards 7, 8. I think I'd be in that territory, 7, 8 wins. If John Harbaugh was the coach this year. So that's like a 3-4 win improvement. So why can't this team compete for the playoffs next year with an improved roster? I see no reason why they couldn't. Goblin says, I'm playing games with my cousin, but I'll be listening to this while I fix boilers tomorrow. Big dog, and I can't believe it. Go Giants. Thank you for being here. Goblins, I talked to you on Twitter earlier this week. We were both excited about the potential hiring of Harbaugh. So glad to see you in here, man, and hope you get to listen to the podcast tomorrow when you're fixing your boilers. Pharaoh, man, thank you for being thank you for the $20 donation. I just want to pull up that super sticker. He says, number 1. Appreciate it, man. And Ray says, let's punch our boners down. Nothing has been accomplished yet. Ray, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to need a big fist to punch that boner down. I'm not going to lie to you, Ray. I'm going to need a big fist to punch that boner down. What's up, Sports Cars, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, man. And I'm just going to read off the phone because my chat just froze. So if I can't pull up the super chat, I'll just read it all from the chat. Let me what's up, Fat Strip, man? Thanks for popping in, man. No Wan'Dale trade Tibbs. I don't know what the market's going to be for Thibodeau. I don't know. He's coming off an injury. He didn't have his best year of his career. I don't know. Let's see. Hope there are no girls in here. Apologize to the ladies. Let's see. Third rounder. What, for Kayvon? Maybe. Pass rushers are highly valued. So, yeah, I think a third rounder's in play. I think if you let Kayvon play out the year and he had a good year, though, you'd get a third rounder, right? I mean, you'd get a comp pick, a third rounder. So, I don't know if I'm in a rush to trade Kayvon. I'd have to be able to get a good value to trade him. He's still a good player. Was he worth the fifth overall pick? Of course not. But he's still a good player. So, I'm not just trading him to trade him. It's got to be a good deal. Let's see. Why is there a scoreboard up there? Is there? Oh God! See that? I just realized. My bad. Elvis says, "Who would we like to see new DC and OC?" I mean, I think it's going to be Monken, whether you like that or not. I think all signs point to Monken. I thought that before the reports even came out. Now the fact that Harbaugh is coming. I mean, I think it's a lock. The reports have come out that he's likely going to hire him. I think Monken's going to be the OC. Terry says, can't up. Now I think the chat caught up. Hopefully. Yeah. Flip says, bring back Wink. The thing with Wink, and I'm not a Ravens fan, so I don't know all the specifics with that situation. But if I recall, it didn't end great. And it never does when you move on from a defensive coordinator. But if I recall, I don't think it ended too well with Wink and Harbaugh. So I'm leaning that probably will not happen. Let's see. Dart was probably the biggest factor in getting a reasonable coach. Dart, I think, was the primary factor. There's obviously other factors. Like we talked about at the top of the stream. The Giants are set up in a good cap situation. Andrew Thomas is a franchise left tackle. Malik Neighbors is a franchise wide receiver. You've got promising pass rushers. Like, there's other factors, but the quarterback, we all know, is the most important position. He talked to him. I think we read it on Twitter today for 2 hours. He was the biggest factor. There's no doubt about it. And you're out of your mind if you thought that John Harbaugh at 63, 64, however old he is, was going to take a job without a quarterback that he believes could be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. So, yeah, Dart was the primary reason why he took this job. It's a quarterback league at the end of the day. Head coach and a quarterback league. Let's see. How much cap space do they have? The Giants? You can't look at the cap space right now because there's going to be a lot of cuts. There's like obvious cuts, right? I don't have it in front of me, but Gano's an obvious cut. Okereke is a potential cut that would save a lot of money. There's probably 25 to 30 in savings just in cuts, and the Giants can always move money around, right? You could always restructure Andrew Thomas's deal. You could restructure Brian Burns' deal. Like, they have options. So if the Giants want to spend and be aggressive, they can. And if there was ever a time for the Giants to be aggressive, why would it not be now? Like, I want to be fiscally responsible when it comes to the salary cap. You never want to be in a horrible situation. But if you believe in Jackson Dart, this is the time to be aggressive. This is the time to backload contracts. He's on his rookie salary. We all know how much quarterbacks get paid once, look at what Josh Allen got. What do you got? Like $60 million a year, whatever he got. So if you believe in Dart and you think he's the guy, I would anticipate the Giants are going to be aggressive in free agency over the next year, 2 years, probably. I would expect them to backload and maybe start to get creative and put void years in contracts, because now's the time to do it when you have that advantage with the quarterback on the rookie salary. So I'm not too concerned with what the cap is. I think the Giants have plenty of tools to be able to free up as much money as they need to bring in free agents, retain free agents. It's just going to be a matter of, do they value certain players at a certain price point? Do they value Wandell at $20 million a year? Because that's likely somebody is going to give them close to that, if not right around that. So, but I expect the Giants to be aggressive. Let's see. Yeah, I know, King. I know. Everybody's telling me, Jim, I was in a rush after work. I'll change the title after the stream. We all know it's John Harbaugh. I'd sign both the Ravens tight ends likely. Well, I don't likely. I like likely. Likely's every time I watch a Ravens game, he impresses me. I say it all the time. I think he's had two or three or four touchdowns called back like on fluke plays over the last like 2 years on like primetime games. He's talented. I don't know what his price point is, but naturally, as a Giants fan, being that we hired Harbaugh, you're going to look at potential Ravens that the New York Giants could potentially acquire. Tyler Linderbaum's another big name that you're going to hear. We'll see. I don't feel great about I don't sports info. I honestly don't know. And again, the chat froze, so I'm just gonna read these super chats off the phone. So let me just read these. Strong, prosper, and fitness man. Thank you very much, man. Hey, Chris, I'm so excited with the hire. Tyler Linderbaum is a free. Yeah, just you took the words out of my mouth. I would love him. I love Tyler Linderbaum coming out of the draft as a prospect. Bad Dog, of course, who I do the show with, loved him too. He was calling to take him. I would love him. A little bit undersized, but most centers in today's NFL are. Yeah, I would love him. JMS, he's been hit or miss. He did improve over the course of last year. But yeah, I would love Linderbaum. Giants fan says, we might have a kicker. 2, we got a coach that can manage a clock. 3, the Ravens had an 89.2% tackle efficiency, second in the NFL. That's a good stat. The Giants, I didn't see the final numbers, but I know it like deep into the season. If they weren't the worst team in terms of missed tackles, they were like among the leaders in that category, which you don't want to be. And they were one of the most penalized teams as well, which I would think would improve obviously with a coach like Harbaugh as well. Harbaugh makes changes. If something's not working, we won't be out coached. And I completely agree with that. I think that's our biggest advantage right now is most weeks, week to week, like this year, when we went against the 49ers this year, I feel like a lot of Giants fans felt like we had a chance to win that game because the 49ers had a lot of injuries, right? They had a lot of injuries going into that game. And I remember because I went to the game and a lot of Giants fans felt like we had an opportunity to win that game. I said, yeah, they have a lot of injuries, but they have a massive advantage at the head coach, right? I think Shanahan's the best coach in the NFL right now. You bring in a guy like Harbaugh, now we're going to be that team that has that advantage. So, most weeks we're going to have the better coaching staff. Moran says, which players are not going to be happy with the new head coach? I mean, Francis, I can't imagine what players would not be happy with John Harbaugh as the head coach. He's a Hall of Fame head coach. I would think every player is going to buy into this. He's one of the best coaches in the league. Let's see. Only $4 million in cap. What are you talking about, T-Rose? The Giants? The Giants right now, I'm going to pull up the cap. They have a lot more than $4 million. I don't know if that's who you're talking about. I'm going to pull it up right now. And again, this is irrelevant because there's going to be cuts. There's going to be restructures. But right now, I'm looking at the New York Giants. Maybe it is it might. Where's the cap? As of today. Okay, let's look at the Giants cap. You're probably going to, I don't have Thomas's contract in front of me. I'll pull it up. Let me look at Andrew Thomas's contract. Thomas has another 4 years on the deal. He's going to be, how old is he now? He was drafted in 2020. So what is he? He's 26. That contract extends to age 30. Tackles play deep into the league. And Thomas is going to be here long term. I see no problem either backloading that contract or giving him an extension. Obviously, you worry a little bit about the injuries, but Thomas is going to be here long term. That's a tool that you could use to free up cap money if you wanted to. You look at, let's see. We talked about Andrew Thomas. Brian Burns. Let's look at his contract. Brian Burns is 27. He's only got 2 more years left on the contract. Easily could extend him. Right now, today, you know what Brian Burns' cap number is next year? Today? $35 million. And There's no way they're going to go into the year with him with a $35 million cap number. They're going to space that out. They'll extend him. I expect them to restructure that contract. You could do the same thing with Dexter Lawrence. The Giants have so many tools at their disposal, and that's before we get into the cuts. They're going to cut Bobby Okereke. In my opinion, they should cut Bobby Okereke. Okay, that would save $9 million. Runyon played decent this year, but you could save $9 million if you cut him. That's an option. That's almost his entire contract if they like a guard in the draft. Hudson's a clear cut. That's going to save you $5.3 million. Singletary's a clear cut. That's going to save you $5.2 million. Gano's a clear cut. That's going to save you $4.5 million. Robertson Harris, they'll likely cut. That's $3.1 million. So, and I'm not even getting into the small cuts. There's tons of guys for $1.5, $2 million that the Giants will have plenty of cap space if they want to spend. Plenty of cap space if they want to spend. Let's see. And they will. They will stretch out some of those contracts. They will get creative. And they will backload contracts that they bring in outside free agents. Let's see, as they should with a quarterback on a rookie salary. And my chat froze again, so I'm going to get back to the chat real quick. Let's see. But Veeth, good to see you, man. Real ones remember the days Chris had to go into his car to scream about the Eagles game. They were going to kill me in my apartment complex. They used to hate me at my apartment complex. I feel bad, actually, thinking back at that when I used to call the games because I'd be screaming at the top of my lungs. Brighter days ahead, serenade me with a hallelujah. Hallelujah. I don't have the voice I used to, Bavith. But I got to meet Bavith at a Met game. That was great. Giants fan says, look at 27 and 28 among the most in NFL cap space. I'm not worried about it. As people say that, I don't agree with the term the cap is a myth, but the cap is fluid. You can move money around. You can move money around, and the Giants will. And I expect them to be aggressive this offseason with the way that they structure contracts and the way that they restructure contracts. Let's see. Blitz says, Blitz, man, thank you very much, man. Chris, we got our guy, brother. Now we need to flesh out this group, get these holes filled in free agency, and have to hit the draft, and we're off and running. Go Big Blue. Let's go. Giants have the highest paid defense in the NFL. Let that sink in. Well, Flip, yeah, makes sense. You gave Dexter Lawrence a big extension. You traded for Brian Burns, and you paid him a record contract. Pass rushers cost money. Abdul Carter was a high draft pick. High draft picks make a lot of money, right? Of course, they signed a Debo. He got a decent contract. They signed Holland. He got a decent contract. They signed Okereke. He got a decent contract. Yeah, they've brought in a lot of free agents. They've made it. Yeah, so it makes sense. They gave Dexter Lawrence a big extension. The defense was horrible last year. Some of that has to do with Bowen, and a lot of that has to do with the holes that they still have. But it could be fixed. Let's see. Chris, can't see the chats you're reading. Yeah, it's because my chat's frozen. So I'm reading them off my phone. My chat, I don't know what it is with this. The chat froze on here. And Sports Influencer, and I agree that Sports Influencer says trade Kayvon 100% in question, but I don't want to do it unless we get a good pick or player in return. Yeah, I'm not trading Kayvon unless we're getting a decent return. Did the Mets sign Tucker? I read that they were close. I don't know if they did yet or not, but I read that they were close before I went live. And Fabian says, how about that? See it, believe it, it happens. Are you referring to the... No, I thought you were referring to the Michael Strahan quote, but you're not. How about the see it, believe it, it happens? Listen, I thought we were getting Harbaugh, and we did. If that's what you're referring to, I'm thrilled. And I think I think this team's only going to get better. Tyler Newman cannot start next season. He probably will, if we're being honest. Well, no, not necessarily. If we take downs early in the draft, he probably won't. But outside of taking downs in the draft, I think he likely will. I don't think Slayton will start next season. Kayvon had his fifth-year option picked up $15 million. Yeah, I know he did. You could still trade him, though. Let's see. Who are your dreams, OC or DC? I don't even want to dream about an OC because I'm almost certain it's going to be Monken from the Ravens. So, that's almost set in stone, like that from what you've read. So, I think he's going to be the OC, and I'm happy with that. Harbaugh likes him. They worked together. They had success. So I don't even want to bring up the likes of a guy like a Mike McDaniel, who I know a lot of, myself included, would be excited about. But I think it's going to be Monken. As far as the defensive coordinator goes, I'd like to see the full list before I could say definitively who my preference would be. But it's likely going to be some like Weaver, for example. He coached with Harbaugh. It's likely going to be somebody that's worked with Harbaugh before, if I had to guess. Let's see. I'd love Caleb Downs. I'd love Caleb Downs. He's one of my favorite players to watch in college football. I'm not normally in love with taking a safety at 5th overall. I don't believe in that. Traditionally, that's a position that you want to pay big money, but there are certain guys that are difference makers, and I believe he could be one of them. Trey Sean says, we got a new coach. Can we get new jerseys, please? Probably not. I feel like every offseason, that's like a big topic of discussion for Giants fans, and it never happens. So probably not. But one of these days we'll get new jerseys. At the end of the day, I don't really care what the jerseys looks like as long as the team's winning games. And David says, Tane, I love you, bro. We think exactly like on so many things, Giants. You are the voice of many of us. Thank you. I believe the depth Kayvon provides is essential for growth on the defensive side. I don't want to trade Kayvon just to trade Kayvon. And ideally, I'd like Kayvon to play next year. Right? I think he could be a big part of the defense. And if he has a big year, you work it out. You either extend him or he walks and you get a comp pick. If he has a big year and you don't bring him back, he's going to get a massive salary. We know what edge rushers get. And if he gets a massive salary, you'll likely get a 3rd-round comp pick for him. So I'm in no rush to trade Kayvon unless you get a big offer. And Tim says, great to see you, Chris. Over 500 season incoming. Let's go Big Blue. I agree. I think it's reasonable to think the Giants are in that 8 to 9 win territory next year. And who knows in the NFL? You could take big jumps real quick, right? Would I be shocked if the Giants won 11 games next year? No. Am I predicting it? No. I want to be clear to say I'm not predicting it. But would I be shocked? No. I just watched the Chicago Bears and New England Patriots flip it around real quick with a head coach and a second-year quarterback. Why can't the Giants do that? It could happen. Let's see. Almighty says, do you think Harbaugh has enough say to get the field changed? I mean, if Harbaugh, I think if Harbaugh made it, like if he really, really wanted to get the field changed and he talked to ownership, they'd probably do it. Do I think ultimately now the thing is that's not exclusively a Giants decision because we also share the field with the New York Jets. So I don't know how much of an impact a guy like Harbaugh can have, right? Because Woody Johnson and the Jets also have to agree with it. They share the field. But yeah, Giants fans have been calling that for years for, to bring in grass for the New York Giants. The reason the Giants obviously don't do it is because of all the, because of the money that it would cost because 2 teams play on the field, right? So it's double the amount of the games, the cleanup. But I think it's stupid that they don't have grass, if I'm being honest. If it saves you 1 or 2 major injuries a year, it's worth it. The turf that the Giants brought in is improved. I remember when they brought that in, it's improved, but I'd still prefer grass. Don't we need to go to grass for next year for the World Cup anyway? Yeah, Ernie, but it's not permanent. It's just for the World Cup, to my understanding. Somebody in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's just for the World Cup, and then they could likely, they'll likely go back to turf. It's not permanent. Let's see. Tim says, I'd be happy. I just want to make sure I didn't. I don't know what is going on with this chat, man, with StreamYard. It's like it jumps every 5 minutes and it catches up. So I could pull up a couple of these now. Team says, hire D-Hop. Yeah, it's just FIFA requirements. Yeah, so they'll likely go back to the turf after the World Cup. Yeah, grass definitely saved Micah Parsons, Pat Mahomes, George Kittle. I mean, it's football at the end of the day. You're going to have injuries. But I think the overall mindset by Giants fans and just fans in general that play on turf is if you could save 1 or 2 injuries a year, it's worth it. But of course, it's football. I mean, you're going to have injuries. And I've said now for a few years, I think the injury argument made by not, I don't even want to use argument, maybe the term excuse or reason, the reason why the Giants have struggled is due to injuries is overrated. I think it's overrated because I think it's more of a coaching and a depth thing because look at the 49ers. The 49ers were killed with injuries this year. They're 2 wins away from going to the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to magically get Kyle Shanahan, who I think is the best coach in the league and should win Coach of the Year this year, but depth and coaching is, I think, the primary reason why the Giants have struggled, not injuries. When the fact that the Giants' offensive line, and we all know how important a left tackle is, but look at the Chargers. The Chargers this year, they lose Joe Alt and they lose Rashawn Slater. They won 11 games. When Andrew Thomas is out of the Giants lineup over the last 2-3 years, the Giants have maybe the worst offense in the history of the NFL. Like, it's that bad. It drops off that significantly. That's inexcusable. Andrew Thomas is great. I love Andrew Thomas, but the offensive line should not fall off as much as it does. So I've said now for years, I think the injury excuse for the Giants, and that's the primary reason, or among the primary reasons why the Giants have been as bad as they've been. I think that's bullshit. Is it a factor? Of course it's a factor, but I don't think it's the main reason. I don't think it's close to the main reason. Let's see. And good to see you, Johnny says, the Tana is back on the stream. Shout out to all New Year's Giants fans. We back, baby. Let's go. And Larry says, oh, shit, Chris is live. Good to see you, Larry, man. Thanks for popping in. John, thanks for being here, man. And Larry, man, thank you for the gifting the membership. Appreciate it. Hopefully my chat stays. I feel like every time I get like an ad on my phone, the chat freezes. So that might be what it is. But I'll look at the phone while I talk to the chat. But appreciate that, man. Thanks for being here, buddy. Thank you very much. Wow, you gifted 10, man. You're awesome, dude. Thank you for being here. I think Larry did during the season. I feel like every time the Giants would score a touchdown, you would throw out a gift. And Almighty says I agree, and it's the same with the receiver position. The depth is horrible. Just in general, the Giants, their depth, it's been bad, and some of that is certainly coaching too. Like depth's going to look a lot better when you have a better coaching staff, which we all think and probably know John Harbaugh is going to bring to this team. Let's see. And he says, I did for a while, but once it got so bad, I lost. Well, I don't blame you. It got horrible. I could barely watch those games. Why not Jim Schwartz? Well, here's what I'll say about Jim Schwartz, DJ. Jim Schwartz would be a dream candidate. One of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. But here's what I'll say about Jim Schwartz. I don't think he's going to leave Cleveland because first off, I think Cleveland's going to pay him a ridiculous amount of money. Like I think he's going to be the highest paid defensive coordinator in the sport. I think the two best defensive coordinators are Brian Flores and Schwartz, off the top of my head. And maybe there's one or two others that you could say, but both of those guys, I think, are likely going to be retained by their teams because I think those teams are going to offer them a ton of money, and they'll likely stay. And if you're Schwartz, the defense isn't the problem in Cleveland. They got one of the best defenses in the league. So I don't think he's rushing to leave that job. And I think they'll pay him a lot of money for him to stay there. Yeah, Salah's another good one. Almighty. Tana, check Ian O'Connor's tweet. Let me take a look. Hold on. Let me take a look. What did Ian O'Connor say? People are getting nervous about cap space. You got that guy in the chat talking about, Giants only got Giants are going to have plenty of cap space. In his heart, John Harbaugh always knew he was meant to be a Giant. Is that the one you're talking about, JD? I'm not going to read the whole article while I'm live, but I will read that after the live for sure. But JD, listen, I'll say it to the chat now. I have a subscriber of mine. He may even be in the chat. I don't know. Whose uncle is Bob Papa, and in 2020, he showed audio to me, and it was clearly Bob Papa, clear as day, that Jim Harbaugh, and I think I showed the audio to JD. I showed it to like 2 or 3 other people. Jim Harbaugh contacted the New York Giants during their coaching search, and he reached out to Bob Papa because Jim Harbaugh didn't have an agent, and Jim Harbaugh was dying to get the New York Giants head coaching job back in 2020. But at that point, I think the Giants were already at the point where they had decided that they were going to hire Joe Judge, and then they didn't end up hiring him. So I was like, and I think if I recall the conversation, Harbaugh said how much he admired the Giants organization. So then as soon as John Harbaugh became available, I remembered that audio that one of my subscribers showed me, and I'm like, yeah, he's choosing the Giants. And I'll definitely check out that article after the live stream and read it. But I'm like, yeah, he's choosing the Giants. When I heard what Jim Harbaugh had to say about the Giants and all the respect he had for the organization, yeah. And when you factor in the situation that the New York Giants had in terms of dart, pass rushers, tackle, wide receiver, good cap situation long term, yeah. Let's see. And Larry J, thank you very much, man. He says, Caleb, I think he wants a bag, but I also think John wants cap space to build the team. A trade? In my opinion, building the trenches will be a priority. At least I hope. We both love the 300-pound men. I expect that to be priority number one for the New York Giants. As it proved as the offensive line was this year, outside of Andrew Thomas and hopefully Illuminor if we bring him back, you don't have anything for sure that is a long-term answer there. And even Illuminor wouldn't be a long-term answer. He's going to be a guy that's likely going to be here for like 2 years. I think that's going to be priority number one for Harbaugh is to shore up the offensive line long-term, to be able to build around Jackson Dart and to keep him on the football field. So I think that's going to be priority number one. I'm not saying they've definitely taken a lineman in the first round, but I think that's going to be a big priority for this team. And the defensive line as well. I mean, our run defense has been pitiful. Linebacker, obviously we all know there's needs. But if you're asking me what I think will be the primary focus, yeah, long-term offensive line. Building the trenches will be priority, at least I hope. Yeah, I 100% agree. Let's see. I think Weaver makes sense because of his the tweet is Shane and Harbaugh about 50 minutes ago. Okay, let me take a look at that. Shane and Harbaugh 50 minutes ago. Ian O'Connor, let me see what he said. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. I think this is it because it says 53 minutes ago. A note on the early hours of this Giants relationship between Joe Shane and John Harbaugh. Shane was on that Tish jet. Now, I did see there was pictures that came out today where I know it was Shane and Harbaugh. I forgot the other guy in the picture. It might have been Tish. I don't remember. They went out to dinner at some like seafood restaurant in Jersey. I saw that. But let me continue to read. I'll read from the top. A note on the early hours of this Giants relationship between Joe Shane and John Harbaugh. Shane was on that Tish jet that picked up Harbaugh in Baltimore yesterday to spend even more time with the coach. The effort is there. Both are committed to making the partnership work. I mean, all signs point to JD and Chad. All signs point to that Shane and Harbaugh seem like they're fine with each other. They're going to have a good working relationship. Obviously, Harbaugh has demonstrated that he's been able to work a long time with general managers in the past. Hopefully, it works out. Like I'll be the first, and I didn't get into it in the stream. I know Giants fans, myself included, and I'm not normally a guy that calls for firings unless I think it's necessary. I wanted to fire Joe Shane. I don't even need to get into the specifics. I think there's plenty of rational reasons why you would have wanted him fired, right? 3 straight losing seasons. The team, again, was picking top 6 in the draft for 3 straight years. I thought he had an opportunity to fire Brian Daboll going into the year, and he stuck with him. I said, okay, it's time to move on, right? I didn't want Shane being on this roster, with the upper management to deter head coaching candidates from potentially taking this job. And I thought that could have been a factor. That being said, I think you also got to, if you're going to destroy Joe Shane for every bad move that he makes, and there's plenty of bad moves you could point to, Deonte Banks, I mean, we go on and on for days. Jalen Hyatt, we go on and on. There's plenty of moves. His free agent signings this past offseason weren't very good. Holland doesn't look great. Adebo doesn't look great. if you're going to destroy him for the bad moves he makes, you can't like nitpick when something good happens and be like, oh, I think that was more Mara. Oh, I think that was Mara. That's the reason why they got Harbaugh. I'm going to give no credit whatsoever to the general manager. Or my favorite is when I go on Twitter and I see Giants fans when the Giants got Jackson Dart. Oh, because I watched Hard Knocks and because the Giants scouted Colorado football, I'm going to give Joe Schoen no credit because Brian Daboll loved Jackson Dart, and I'm going to give Joe Schoen no credit, even though he was the guy that orchestrated the trade to move up and get him. Just because Joe Schoen listens to his head coaches and receives their input and takes value in it and takes players based off of that doesn't mean he doesn't deserve credit for the pick. He's the general manager. He's the final decision maker. If you're going to destroy him when things don't go well, you have to give him credit when things do. And at the end of the day, and I wanted him fired, okay? But at the end of the day, the two most important parts of a football team are a head coach and a quarterback. And right now, you have a quarterback that you believe in. I think most Giant fans believe in. And I think you should believe in even more so with the fact that John Harbaugh, when he had a choice of 9 different teams to go to, rushed to the opportunity to coach Jackson Dart. So you have a quarterback that you believe in, and you have a head coach that you believe in. Joe Schoen was the general manager for both of those decisions. So I'm going to give him some credit, and I think he's done a good job in terms of being able to bring John Harbaugh in here. That's what I'll say. Should he have been fired? We could argue that point, and I think there was a very reasonable take to want to get rid of him. And has he done more bad than good? You could certainly argue that. Has he done some good things? Of course. That's why John Harbaugh took the job, because there were appealing things about this football team. Let's see. I want to make sure I catch up on this. Building the trenches will be. Yeah, I already read that. And JT says, if Dart steadily improves and continues his success, we could stop the run and stay healthy. The Giants are a playoff team. That's why he took the job. Yeah. Listen, quarterback, head coach. If Harbaugh believes that Jackson Dart could be a top 10 quarterback and he becomes a top 10 quarterback, the Giants are going to be a playoff threat every year. Period. End of story. With a coach like Harbaugh, if you have a top 10 quarterback, you're going to be in the thick of it every year. Oh, wow. Tucker to the Dodgers. Wow. That sucks. And Latrell says, I'm a diehard Ravens fan. I wish John Harbaugh well, but he's a suspect in an in-game coach. He lets his coordinators do whatever the hell they want. He has very little feel for the game. I mean, Latrell, at the end of the day, I think, obviously I don't watch Ravens games as closely as you do. You watch every game. If I was a Ravens fan, I may have wanted Harbaugh fired too, right? I think there becomes a point in time where, as a fan, same thing with Mike Tomlin. Like, I, as a Giants fan from the outside looking in, I look at Tomlin and I'm like, that guy's a phenomenal coach. Like, I look at what he was able to do with that Steelers team with all the uncertainty at quarterback for the last 5-6 years. Giants fans were dying to see Russell Wilson play the last 2 games because they wanted the first pick and they thought he would give this team the best chance to lose football games. Mike Tomlin took a Russell Wilson-led football team to the playoffs. Mike Tomlin took a washed Aaron Rodgers team to the playoffs. Mike Tomlin took a Kenny Pickett-led team to the playoffs. So, Mason Rudolph, right? So, as a Giants fan from the outside looking in, it's easy for me to say, that guy's a great coach. I would love him to coach the Giants. And I do think he's a great coach. And I think Harbaugh's a great coach as well. And I'm thrilled that he's here. But if I was a Steeler or Ravens fan and had that coach for 15, 20 straight years, and the team consistently couldn't get over the hump, I think there becomes a point in time where you become exhausted and you just want change for the sake of change to try to create a spark, right? I don't think anybody would argue that Nick Sirianni or why is the name escaping me? Somebody what was it? What was the Eagles coach before Sirianni? It was somebody in chat say it. Why is the name escape me off the top of my head? I didn't think he was a very good coach, but he won the Eagles their first Super Bowl. But the point I was going to make is I don't think anybody would argue, Doug Peterson. I don't think anybody would argue that those two coaches are better than Andy Reid. right? I think anybody with a brain that knows football would say, of course, Andy Reid's better than those two guys, but they won a Super Bowl. So sometimes change works, and I get it. If I was a Ravens fan, I'd probably feel the same way. You've kind of been stuck in the mud, right? Like you thought the last two, not this year because Jackson got hurt and the team struggled, but the 2 years prior to that, you were as good as anybody. I would have said it's Super Bowl or bust. And the fact you've come up short, I understand why Ravens fans would want to get rid of him. And I think if Giants fans, we went through it as Giants fans. We went through it with Tom Coughlin. Not that I was one of the ones that was dying to fire Tom Coughlin, but I think the fan base got to a point where they got exhausted. And they said, we appreciate everything Coughlin's done. He won us 2 Super Bowls, but the team is starting to teeter out. And I think it's time to make a move. So just because Ravens fans wanted him gone doesn't mean he's not going to be successful here. And I think he will be. Let's see. Let's see. And you just said coded what I said. It's kind of like when we reach the end with Tom Coughlin time here. Yeah, exactly. Like I think there comes a point where it's sometimes even if he's a great coach, you still sometimes have to make a change. Let's see. Who's better, Dart or Ward? I mean, it's only 1 year, but if I had to say it today, I would say Jackson Dart. I mean, I think Jackson Dart had the better year. And if you want to make the argument that Cam Ward doesn't have a whole lot of help there, well, I could say the same thing about Jackson Dart this year, right? Malik Neighbors didn't play. Cam Scatterwood barely played with Jackson Dart. And he still was. And the thing that's most impressive to me about Jackson Dart's rookie year is this. When you look at Daniel Jones's rookie year, and of course, we all laughed at the fumbling problem. We're not Giants fans, but outside fans laughed at the fumbling problems. And there were definitely things that left a lot to be desired his rookie year that you knew needed to be cleaned up. But he clearly showed some promise. He threw 24 touchdowns, I think, in, 12 starts, I think Daniel Jones had his rookie year. But the thing that stands out to me with Jackson Dart when comparing it to Daniel Jones's rookie year, well, they both did show promise. You go back and look at Daniel Jones's rookie year, he stockpiled his stats against like some of the worst teams in the NFL, right? He had a monster game against, I think he had 2 monster games. Maybe it was just one against Washington. And every big game he had that year was the Bucs weren't great that year. Every big game he had that year was against a really bad defense. Jackson Dart this year, he had a big game against the Broncos, one of the best defenses in the sport. He had a good game against the Philadelphia Eagles. So he performed well against some of the best defenses in the NFL. That to me is what stands out for Jackson Dart this year and why I think a lot of Giants fans are excited about, where his potential could take him. And he did it without much help. I mean, when you factor in Neighbors was out, who's his number 1 receiver this year? Wan'Dale Robinson, good receiver, but he's not a number 1 receiver on most football teams. So right now, if you're asking me who's in the lead, I would say Jackson Dart. And that doesn't mean things can't change, but I would say Jackson Dart today. And Larry, man, I'm going to pull that up when the chat catches up, but I'll read it off the phone. He says, I work with the Broncos fans, had a big debate over Harbaugh. Good to see how a no skin in the game fan sees it. When it came to Dart, we both agreed. He shows promise as a franchise quarterback, and Harbaugh was the right coach for him. Also, F the Eagles. Larry, man, thank you so much for the incredible generosity. Thank you for being here. As far as F the Eagles go, I was thrilled, as I'm sure everybody else was. I think in the back of our heads, a little bit of worry, just because the Eagles always seem to steal. Like you think about Saquon and, they steal our players. So a little bit of worry that they may end up going after Harbaugh, but I didn't think they'd fire Sirianni. Ultimately, they didn't. But I was thrilled when the Eagles lost that playoff game. And Nick Sirianni, man, for him to lose that game, the Eagles lose. First off, they're at home. They lose. They win the turnover battle by 2 at home. George Kittle gets hurt in the first quarter. They're without Nick Bosa. They're without Warner, in my opinion, the best linebacker in the NFL. they're missing their number one wide receiver the entirety of the year. For them to lose to that 49ers team, Nick Sirianni got destroyed, coach to coach. But as far as the when it comes to Dart, we both agree. Yeah, I think Dart, like, I'm scared as a fan just because we've been beaten down so much in recent years. And I admittedly, I don't know if I ever completely bought into Daniel Jones as being an elite quarterback, but I bought into Daniel Jones potentially becoming, at least he had the potential to be a franchise quarterback. So I'm reluctant to completely buy in to a quarterback before I completely see it. But I'm going to tell you what, I'm not at the point where I'm willing to say that I think Jackson Dart is elite. I think when I watch Drake May, that guy's elite. Like that, I think Drake May is comparable to a guy like a Josh Allen. I think Caleb Williams, if you have listened to me talk before, even going into this year, I think Caleb Williams is the closest thing to Pat Mahomes I've seen in terms of a prospect. And that throw he made in that playoff game was out of this world. But I'll tell you what, Jackson Dart has the potential for sure to be a franchise quarterback. Whether or not he gets there, we'll see. I think the biggest worry with him is potential injuries because of the style of play and his size. He's not 6'5", 240, 250 like a guy like Josh Allen, but his pocket awareness is top tier. And the guy makes plays. So I'm excited, man. I think he could be a franchise quarterback for sure, especially now that he has a head coach like John Harbaugh. Let's see. And Larry says, well, the discussion was about how every coach wanted DJ to fit to them, but Harbaugh will want Dart to be Dart. That's a good point. Harbaugh's not coming in here as a guy that is going to, like you said, he's going to coach to his strengths. Which, to be fair, Dable did that too with Daniel Jones' first year. And then I think they tried to make him put more on his plate than, if we're being honest, than he was capable of in 2024. And it got off to, or 2023, I should say. And it got off to a really rocky start. He got hurt and it went to hell. Let's see. And Hassan says, Tana, we need a collab reaction with you and Bad Dog on Josh Allen being, you guys are the best. Well, I'm sure we'll do that. Can we get Jamar Chase? No. Tana, I see it this way. If you were to switch Drake May and Dart right now, I'm so high on Dart that the Pats would be my Super Bowl pick. Wow, you're that high on him, really? And listen, I like Dart. I think the Giants can win a lot of games with Dart. And I wish I could come on here, Almighty, and be like, I'm on that level yet with Jackson Dart. I'm not there yet. Now, to be fair, even though I love Drake May as a prospect, I wasn't nearly as high on Drake May after his first year as I am now, of course, right? With the way that he's played. So I just feel like I need to see him reach another level before I put him in those conversations. But I think he's capable of it. I think he's capable of reaching that level. Let's see. What are your thoughts on Drake May? I mean, I love Drake May as a prospect. I loved Caleb Williams a little bit more. But, yeah, like I just said, I think Drake May, when I watch Drake May, I think Josh Allen. Even before he played in the pros, when I watched him at North Carolina, I think Josh, like in terms of a skill set, he's the closest thing to Josh Allen, I think, in the NFL today. And Josh Allen reminds me a lot of Cam Newton. I think a little bit better, but I think they're a similar style of quarterback. But, yeah, I think Drake May, sky's the limit. I think he's going to win a few Super Bowls, and I think the same for Caleb Williams. MYG31, man, thank you very much, man, for the 99-cent donation, man. Thank you very much. What's up, Chris? With Tucker going to the Dodgers, maybe they might trade Hernandez. The Dodgers just get everybody. It's been such an underwhelming offseason for both the Mets and Yankees. But with the Yankees, I feel like you kind of expected it just based off of how the general manager and ownership kind of led going into the offseason. The Mets, man, super underwhelming offseason, super underwhelming. And I guess maybe they're in the process of trying to reshape the team, and maybe they'll get really aggressive next offseason, but it's been a super underwhelming offseason. What team surprised you this year? Well, I said on Twitter, DJ, going into the year, I actually posed that question on Twitter. Who's your surprise team this year going into the year outside of the New York Giants? And I picked the Bears as my surprise team. That was, preseason, and I was right. I don't know if they were the biggest surprise. I think you could argue the Patriots were probably the biggest surprise. But if I had to pick one team that surprised me that I didn't see coming going into the year, I'm not looking at the chat. If I had to pick one team, I would say there's several teams that you could say, right? Like the Patriots, I think surprised. But now I think people were higher on the Patriots, but they weren't this high. Like they thought May would take a leap and Vrabel, so they were certainly a surprise team. But I'm gonna go with the Jaguars. I'm gonna go with the Jaguars because, I don't know. I'm gonna go with the Jaguars. I didn't see that coming. I didn't think they'd be nearly as good as they were. If I had to pick a team going into the year out of that division, I probably would have picked that division as a whole. Shocked me, the AFC South, because that was one of my arguments for why Harbaugh wouldn't want to take the Tennessee job. Because if you look at the AFC South now, the Houston Texans have the best defense in the NFL. I still think C.J. Stroud's a very good quarterback. They got a very good young head coach in DeMeco Ryans. So you would think they're going to continue to be competitive. You look at the Jaguars, one of the, obviously a great start for their coach. Trevor Lawrence had a big second half, great defense. Young quarterback, young coach, great defense. Again, if I'm John Harbaugh looking at the Titans job, I'm saying, okay, the Jaguars look like they're going to be good for a while. The Texans look like they could be good for a while. And then the Colts, you forget because Daniel Jones got hurt. But before that injury, they had the best record in the NFL, or among one of the best records in the NFL. So just as a whole, I think the AFC South was the biggest surprise for me. I didn't think that division would be as good as it was. But if I had to pick one team, I'd pick the Jaguars. Let's see. But you could argue the Pats, like you said. How could it not be the Pats? You could certainly argue the Pats or the Bears. There's several teams that you could argue. Let's see. Big Blue says, Tata, which would you say is a bigger draft, be linebacker or safety, with wide receiver or O-line being mid-round picks? Okay, so you're saying, so I just want to make sure I understand your question. So your question is, if they're going either linebacker or safety, and they go in with the strategy, we're going to go wide receiver, offensive line in the mid rounds, what would be the bigger need in the first round, the linebacker or the safety spot? If we're not just talking who's the best player, we're just talking what's the biggest need. Now, I'm not saying that I would necessarily advocate for taking the linebacker over the safety because Downs is tremendous. But if we're just talking need, it's linebacker. The Giants linebacking core is pathetic. The last time they drafted a first-round linebacker was Carl Banks. I think if the Giants took a linebacker in the first round, Giants fans would be excited because our linebacking core is pitiful, and we need a long-term answer there at the linebacker spot. We need a quarterback on the defense. So if we're just talking positional need, I would say linebacker personally over the safety. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I would prioritize a guy like Reese, for example, who many think projects to be more of a edge in the NFL than a middle linebacker, over a guy like a Caleb Downs. But if we're just talking positional need between those two, I would go linebacker. Let's see. Which would you say is a bigger draft need? Oh, I just read that. Houston. I said that in the other stream. I'm curious to get the chat's take on this. I think I'm ready to pick them. And I can't believe I'm saying this. and maybe I'm just buying way too into the Kool-Aid after their first playoff game. I'm going to say it. I am picking. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm going to pick the Houston Texans to at least go to the Super Bowl. I don't know if I'm going to go as far to say that they're going to win, but I'm picking the Houston Texans to come out of the AFC. But I want to get your takes in the chat. Who do you got? Who is your Super Bowl pick in this year's playoffs? I think a popular answer, of course, is going to be the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen is the best quarterback left in the playoffs. The Denver Broncos, tough place to play, good defense. Sean Payton, tremendous coach. They're obviously a threat out of the AFC. The Seahawks have home field advantage, tough place to play. Makes sense if you go with them. The Rams, McVay, tremendous coach. But the way that Texan defense looks, man, I don't know. That to me looks like a Super Bowl defense. I think I'm going Texans out of the AFC. I think I'm going Texans out of the AFC, and I think I'm going the Rams kind of I feel like the Rams weren't hitting on all cylinders going into the playoffs, but it's so hard for me to pick a Sam Darnold-led team to go to the Super Bowl. But tremendous home field advantage. The Seahawks had a great year. They're going to be tough to beat in that stadium. As much as I like Shanahan and as much as that 49ers team has overcome, it's very hard for me to see with all the injuries, them winning another 2 playoff games to get to the Super Bowl. And I don't think the Bears are ready yet. So in the NFC, I think it's either going to be Seattle or the Rams. And I think I'd give a slight edge to the Rams, but because of the home field advantage, I think it's almost a coin flip with Seattle and the Rams. But I do think that'll, if I had to pick today, I think that'll be the NFC title game. And in the AFC, I think I'm going Texans, man. I think I'm going Texans. But let's see. Bears versus Texans. Will John Harbaugh? I hope so. I hope John Harbaugh will be the next Mike Vrabel. Let's see. Seattle NFC and Denver AFC. Yeah, Denver. I think Denver's being a bit overlooked by a lot of people because I don't think Denver's a great team. I really don't. But they've found ways to win games this year. The fact that Mile High Stadium is one of the toughest places to play in the league. Sean Payton's a Hall of Fame head coach. They have a very good defense. I'm rooting for Josh Allen, and I want to pick the Bills. I think I'm slightly leaning towards Denver winning that game, but I think it's going to be a great game. And yeah, Denver's got as good of a chance as anybody because of the home field to go to the Super Bowl out of the AFC. But I don't know. I think that Texas defense is. I'm ready to buy into it. Rover said, "Thank you, Rover, being a member." He says, "Not considering wins and losses, what areas do you think Dart needs to improve on to be considered elite?" Well, I think the obvious one for me with Dart, and the good news is, especially in the last game or two, it looked like he was improving on it tremendously. He's got to get a lot smarter in terms of avoiding contact, right? Not saying that I don't want him to run. That's a part of his game. And I'm not saying at times I don't want him to put his body on the line. At times you have to. You got to find a way to pick up that big first down. But I think he's got to be smarter. And so that's the one thing that really stands out to me. He's got to be smarter with the football. He's got to avoid contact when he can, when it's necessary. So that's the big one for me. And if I'm being, another thing, if I'm being nitpicky, and I think he will get better at this. I think his deep ball at times is questionable. I think he's got to get better with his deep ball. But to be fair, he didn't have Malik Neighbors. You get Malik Neighbors out there, it's going to look a lot better. So, but yeah, I would go if you're asking me the two things, by far the biggest one, and the good news is I think he has improved. He did improve on that as the season came to an end, is be smarter with the football in terms of avoiding contact when necessary, get out of bounds, don't take unnecessary hits. And I would go with the deep ball. Let's see. Do you think John will use Wan'Dale like Flowers? Yes. If Wan'Dale is back, yes. I made that point earlier in the stream. I think if there is a receiver in the league that is like a carbon copy of Wan'Dale Robinson, it's Zay Flowers. Or Shakir maybe with the Bills, but who they drafted in the first round. So, yeah. Greg says, I think the Rams lose the Bears at Soldier Field. I mean, it's going to be a good game. The thing with the Bears, here's what I'll say about the Bears. If Caleb has the ball with a chance to win that game, I think the Bears are going to win. Like he's been how many fourth quarter comebacks does that guy have this year? I think he led the league, right? I think he had what, six, 7 fourth quarter comebacks, whatever it was. He had the game winning drive this past week. If the Bears have a chance to win late in that game, I think the Bears are going to win it. But I'm still leaning with the Rams. I don't think the Bears are quite ready yet, and I think the Rams, with their experience in McVay, will find a way to win that game. Michael says, enjoying your show as always, man. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it, man. Do you think Wink comes back? No, I don't. I don't. I wouldn't rule it out, obviously due to the ties to Harbaugh, but no, I don't think he will. David says Texans so similar to the 07 Giants pass, especially, I mean, obviously things didn't. The other thing that I think the Giants will look at, even though they fired Dable, they obviously still have a decent relationship with him, right? Dable went out of his way to promote the job to Harbaugh. I still think Dable has a good relationship with Joe Shane. And we know how Wink and Dable finished. Like they got into like a heated fight. I'd be surprised. I'd be very surprised if they and to my understanding, I don't think Wink and Harbaugh ended on the greatest of terms either. So I'd be surprised. Let's see. Better coach, McVay or Shanahan? I mean, that you're drawing straws there, right? I mean, they're both trending towards being Hall of Fame head coaches. They're both the gold standard in terms of, when you think about whenever like a team is hiring a coordinator for the first time and you're taking a swing at the fences like the Giants did with Brian Dable, for example, or several of their other coaches, those are the guys that you hope they become, right? The guy that's going to be the head coach for the next 10, 15, 20 years, who turns in, from a great offensive coordinator to a great head coach. Or Harbaugh's a perfect example. He was a special teams coordinator, but same thing. Those two you mentioned in more recent history are the gold standard. Like whenever you hire a hotshot offensive coordinator, you hope they're the next McVay. You hope they're the next Shanahan. But if I had to pick one, I mean, if you're going to use the Super Bowl as a tiebreaker, you're going to go with McVay, right? He's got a championship. But I'm going to tell you what, the job that Shanahan did this year, I don't know. And when you think about what Shanahan's been able to do with that 49ers team without an elite quarterback, he brought Jimmy Garoppolo to a Super Bowl. Brock Purdy within a game of a Super Bowl. I mean, Kyle Shanahan's a damn good coach. Like I think I would give a slight edge to Shanahan, but it's so close. Like, I mean, they're both incredible. They're both Hall of Fame coaches. Let's see. And Almighty says, hot take, if Stafford wins a second Super Bowl, do you have him above Rodgers? I used to be a huge Aaron Rodgers fan. Huge. Like, I mean, I don't know, you've been with my channel for a while. There was a point in time, probably around like 2018, where I would argue with people, Rodgers or Brady. Like, I thought it was neck and neck. Like, Rodgers is one of the most talented quarterbacks I've ever seen. I mean, he was kind of Mahomes before Mahomes, for me at least. But as his career progressed, and as I saw him lose games, the game that really soured me on Aaron Rodgers in terms of being a top 3 quarterback of all time, of course, he's still one of the greats. But the game that really soured me on Rodgers of being in that conversation was the 49ers playoff game. What was it, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago with the Packers, where the Packers scored a touchdown on their first drive, and then they didn't score another point for the rest of the game. And the weather was a factor in that game, but that game really soured me on Rodgers. I used to buy into the mindset of when you looked at Rodgers' playoff performances, the defense would surrender like 30 points, 35 points a game. They'd score 28, 31 or 31, and they would lose a really close game. And he had so many clutch moments in the playoffs, right? You think about the 2 Hail Marys. You think about the throw against the what was it, against the Cowboys, I think, when he made that ridiculous throw on the sideline. So he had some, and of course he won a Super Bowl. But that game really lowered him on my personal quarterback all-time ranking. Like he at that point I was like, no, he's not even in the discussion for top 5 all time. But to your question, and I think Stafford, again, he's kind of like aged like fine wine. As his career has progressed, his legacy has gotten better and better. Of course, he won the late Super Bowl. He was kind of hindered due to the fact that he was on the Lions for as long as he was in a horrible situation. And you always knew he had a ton of talent, but could never get over the hump because he didn't have any support there. If he were to win another Super Bowl, oh, that's a good one. I think I would. It's close. I think I would still lean Aaron Rodgers. And I know a lot of people hate Aaron Rodgers, and I get it. And I'm not the biggest fan of him off the field, but on the field, I think he's, I think he's a tremendous talent. I think I would still lean Aaron Rodgers because if I'm not mistaken, I think Rodgers has the most MVPs in the history of the NFL, right? I think he's got 4 MVPs. He has a Super Bowl ring. It's close though. If Stafford wins a second Super Bowl, he enters that for sure top 10 conversation. And he definitely enters the class of an Aaron Rodgers, a Brett Favre. He enters that class. He enters that conversation. So I think that's a good one. If he were to win, I think that's a good debate. Let's see. Pete says A-Rod, Marino, Mahomes, Stafford, Mount Rushmore of arm talent in my lifetime. Now, Pete, I obviously saw Marino, but I started watching football. I was born in 85. I started watching football pretty regularly, I would say around 91, 92. So I saw Marino. I saw Young. I saw Aikman. I didn't get to see prime Marino. I didn't, Marino, of course, I think it was 84. His second year, he had that insane year, right, where he won the MVP. I think the Dolphins went to the Super Bowl that year. He threw for like just under 5,000 yards, which for back then is insane. Arguably, when you factor in the era when that season took place, you could argue that's the greatest statistical season in the history of the NFL by Dan Marino. Like when you factor in the era that took place in. And Marino's arm talent is obviously legendary. It's off the charts. So he's for sure on the list if we're just talking arm talent. But one guy, Pete, that I think you left off, I'm going to read the list because I don't have it pulled up on here. One guy in terms of, if we're just talking arm talent, that I think that you left off the list, you mentioned A-Rod, who's obviously great, Marino, Mahomes, and Stafford is your Mount Rushmore of arm talent. If we're just talking arm talent, I think you have to throw Brett Favre in that conversation. Brett Favre's arm was insane. Now, he made a lot of dumb decisions, and he's a jerk after the fact, right? We all know, what he did after football. But in terms of his arm, dude, he was like the Aroldis Chapman of the NFL. His arm talent, it was off the chart, man. He could throw 105-mile-an-hour fastball. Elway, of course, great arm talent too. But I think you got to throw Favre in that conversation. And Word, man, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. He says, missed you, Tatum. Missed you too, man. Thanks for being here, buddy. I'm trying to. Yeah, I remember him breaking fingers. Forgot about Favre. Montana was a great quarterback for sure. Arguably the second greatest quarterback of all time behind Tom Brady. But he didn't have that. If we're just talking arm strength, and I'm gonna throw another name in there that you didn't mention. You mentioned Mahomes. I think you got to mention Josh Allen too. I mean, you see some of the throws that Josh Allen makes; they're just jaw-dropping. There are times Josh Allen will make a throw where he's got a guy in his lap, he can't step into the throw, and he just throws it flat-footed, and the ball travels like 100 miles an hour, and it goes like 50 yards in the air. So Josh Allen's another quarterback, and I remember, obviously not just me, everybody, when we saw his combine when he was coming out of Wyoming, it was eye-opening in terms of just his pure arm talent. I wouldn't put Breeze in the arm talent conversation. Breeze is, of course, one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time. Here's what I'll say about Breeze. I think Breeze might be the best anticipatory thrower in the history of the NFL, or he's certainly up there. Another great one in that category would be a guy like Phillip Rivers. Drew Brees was incredible from that aspect. But if we're just talking arm strength, arm talent, no, he's not in that conversation. Let's see. Brees was, ultra accurate. Sonic says, my Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks' arms is Montana, Favre, Elway, and Marino. I mean, that's a good list. Caleb Williams. I don't know if I would put Caleb on that level, but his arm is insane. He's got a great arm. I don't know if I would quite put him on that level. Stafford definitely has insane arm talent, David. I'm not saying he doesn't. He definitely deserves to be in that conversation, of some of the best, most talented arms of all time. Jay Cutler for arm talent. Jay Cutler, you want to talk about maybe the most disappointing quarterback. I'm trying to think of a guy. I mean, you could put, obviously you could point to the obvious bust that everybody always talks about. Jamarcus Russell, Ryan Leaf, David Carr, I think mainly due to his offensive line woes early on in his career. Tim Couch. There were several busts, but you want to talk about a guy that when you saw him, you're like, oh my God, like he has the potential to be an all-time great quarterback. For Cutler to fall as short as he did, one of the more, it's funny to say because I wouldn't call him a failure. He had some really good years in the pros, but one of the more disappointing careers at the quarterback position in my lifetime, I would say Jay Cutler, because you're absolutely right. His arm talent was great. Let's see. Peyton Manning is still my favorite. Peyton Manning, again, I wouldn't put Peyton in the conversation for the greatest arm of all time, but if we're just talking about the greatest quarterback of all time, yeah. Peyton. All right, off the top of my head, let me give my quarterback list. Yeah, Brady's got to be one. I mean, the guy's got 7 Super Bowls or 6. I think it's 7, right? And he did it after he left the Patriots. It's 6 or 7. Brady's got to be one. 2 is Montana, I think. I mean, he won 4 Super Bowls. Mahomes is certainly challenging for that, and he may surpass him. But today, I would still put Montana at 2. I think I would still have Peyton above Mahomes today, but I think Mahomes is going to pass him. But today, I think I'd have Peyton. I think I'd have Peyton 3, and I think I'd have Mahomes 4. I think that would be my top 4: Brady, Montana, Peyton, Mahomes. But with Mahomes likely to get to at least number 2. Let's see. Jeff George did have a crazy arm. Didn't work out in the pros for the most part, but he did have a crazy arm. Oh, another guy I didn't mention. I saw that you said Dan Fouts disrespect. Of course, the Air Coryell offense. But another guy you got to mention, if we're just talking arm talent, he's a great quarterback. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. But another guy you got, Warren Moon had a cannon, right? Like Warren Moon should be in that conversation too. Let's see. Who is your guy at 5, even though it's early? Like today, and this is subject to change because I'm kind of slightly leaning we may go offensive line right now, but I'll go with Downs today. If I was doing a mock draft today, I would go with Caleb Downs for the Giants at 5, but that's subject to change. But today, Warren Moon, yeah. Dumpster says, I still can't believe we have Harbaugh. You and me both, man. Let's see. Did I say 6, 7? I know that's like the inside joke. Brady, Montana. I think you meant to say Manning and Hostetler. All right, that's not that's not biased. We all love Jeff Hostetler though. Miss watching it. That's a good team to bring up in terms of underwhelming is certainly not the right word for Andrew Luck, but in terms of not reaching the heights that you thought he would, Andrew Luck is near the top of the list, right? And you see, obviously Andrew Luck coming out of Stanford was one of the most talked about quarterback prospects of all time. He comes into the Colts his first year after Peyton Manning gets hurt, and they move on from Peyton. Peyton, of course, goes to the Broncos. They win their Super Bowl, I think 2 or 3 years after that. But he comes to the Colts his first year. I think they won 11 games with a team that obviously had a ton of holes the year before because they had the first overall pick. And he looks tremendous. I think he threw for 40 touchdowns a couple years later. He's a prime example of as good of a quarterback as there is, or among, in terms of talent, he's right there with anybody, who was absolutely ruined by the organization who drafted him. The offensive lines when Andrew Luck was with that Colts team were pathetic, and they forced him to retire much earlier than he should have. What's up, Nate the Man? Thanks for popping in, man. Is Steve Young the greatest backup ever? I mean, he wasn't a backup for his whole career. He was drafted by the Bucs. Of course, he was a backup with the 49ers. I remember watching the game as a kid. I think it was 90. I want to say it was 92, 91 or 92. I remember watching that game as a kid. The playoff game against the Cowboys. Montana, I think, was the starter earlier in the year, and he got hurt. And Young had a great year. And Montana was healthy in that game. And the Niners were losing, and people were debating. I remember watching that game with my dad and his friends. They were debating on whether or not they should put Montana back in the game, but obviously they elected not to because Young had a tremendous year and he was a Hall of Fame quarterback at MVP. But yeah, he was a backup for a bit there with Montana, but he wasn't like a career backup. Let's see. Giants fan says, "Would you bring in Justin Tucker to challenge Souls?" Not Tucker specifically, but I would definitely not hand the job to Souls. I would bring in competition. What's up, Sonic Man? Thanks for popping in, buddy. And Vouch says, "What's your honest opinion on Scat and Neighbors coming back? Does it worry you if they're going to be the same?" I'm not so much with Scat. Because Scat's not like a guy like Barkley. I was much more concerned than Scatterbo because Barkley relies a lot more on cuts and athleticism. Scatterbo's a guy that's just going to run you over. So I'm not super worried about Scatterbo in terms of can he get back to the player that he was, because I think he will. Once he's healthy and ready to go. Neighbors, I think, will too, but it may take him a year to like really get back to the Neighbors that we saw in his rookie season. Like, I don't expect Neighbors to come out of the gate looking like, Jamar Chase day one coming off that injury. So it may take Neighbors a bit longer. I think when Scatterbo is good and ready to go, I think he'll be fine. Jay, thank you very much, man. Why do you love number 18 so much? He sucks and doesn't lead. Are we talking about Darius Slayton? I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. I mean, he's number 18 on the Giants right now. I don't know if you're talking about him, or I don't know if you're talking about, we were talking about Peyton Manning. I don't know. But if you're talking about Darius Slayton, first off, I love any Giant. And I think the reason why I don't even know if I want to use the term love for Darius Slayton anymore, even though I don't know if you follow me on Twitter. He like retweeted me and like bashed me, and I deleted it because I didn't want to get into a fight with him because I respect Darius Slayton. I don't want to make him look bad. But I love any Giant, and I guess the thing that I respect about Darius Slayton is I think he's proud to be a Giant. I like the way that he stuck up for Daniel Jones while he was here. I like the fact that Slayton took a pay cut to come back with the New York Giants. You could argue twice. I think so there were things that I respected about Darius Slayton, but just because I like him as I think a leader, I think he is respected as a leader in that locker room, as evidenced by the captain's badge, doesn't mean I think he should be starting next year, because I do not. I don't think Darius Slayton I think he should be the wide receiver 4. He's clearly going to be on the team, but I don't think he should be a big part of the offense. I think he should be the wide receiver 4. Yeah, he never reached the level that I was hoping he would after his rookie year. He's always had drop problems. So I don't think he's an incredible talent. I think he's kind of just a player that's been a lifetime Giant, that's been productive at times, that you want to root for. That's how I feel about Darius Slayton. But I don't think he's a core piece of a team that can contend for a Super Bowl. I don't think he should be part of the starting lineup next year. Let's see. Tata, that's what scares me. So is receiver. I must it. Be good, Minsu, man. Yeah, I'm out. I'm going to end this soon, too, because I got to get up for work tomorrow, man. But you have a great night, man. Slayton can go, and I'll pack his luggage for him. He's not going to go, though, because there's no sense of cutting him. You don't save any money. So he'll be back next year, but he'll be gone the year after that. I have a feeling Slay won't be dropping as many passes this year. He might be getting a delivery. I don't think Slayton's going to get as many. I don't think he's going to get a ton of balls thrown his way. I don't think he's going to be in the starting lineup this year. I expect the Giants to either draft a wide receiver early, trade for a wide receiver, sign a wide. Like I think they're going to improve that position. So I don't think he's going to get a lot of balls thrown his way. The most overpaid receiver in the league. Well, obviously now it looks that way. Yeah. I mean, I'd have to look at every receiver contract in the league, but he's got to be near the top of the list. I think, what is he getting, $12 or $13 million a year? At the time, listen, $13 million sounds like a lot, but for a wide receiver 3, which is basically what he is going into the year, it's not insane money. Wide receivers get paid a ridiculous amount of money now, right? Like the top wide receivers get $40 million a year. The mid-tier Wandell is going to get at least $20 million. He's going, or at least $19 or $20 million. So when they signed him to the deal, I was like, okay, he's been with the team for a while. At times he's been pretty productive. That's not a horrible contract. Obviously, with the way he played this year, yeah, awful. Didn't live up to the contract. If we could go back in time, we wouldn't have signed him. But when they made the deal, I didn't think it was a bad contract. I think Slayton would have gotten that contract somewhere else. I do. I think I don't know that for a fact, but I think there were probably teams around the league that were willing to pay him that amount of money. That's not a lot of money for a wide receiver. Let's see. I tried for Alec Pierce before talking with Wandell. You want to talk about polar opposite wide receivers. They're completely different. So I think that just comes down to a preference of the type of offense that you want to build if you're the offensive coordinator. Pierce this year, I think, had like 45, 46, 47 catches, but he had 1,000 yards. Like those are like Deshaun Jackson type numbers, right? He averaged like 21, 22 yards a catch. Wandell's a guy that's more so going to get you 90 to 100 catches and 1,000 yards. So they're both going to get you around 1,000 yards, but they're going to do it in a much different way. So two completely different skill sets. So I think that more so is dependent on the type of offense you envision that you want to build, what wide receiver you'd prefer for your offense. Let's see. Good to see you too, Papa Goots. I think we'll have a good free agency. Yeah, we'll see. I agree. Polar opposites that I prefer. Yeah, it's completely different. Do you think we could ever get any sort of production out of Fedoni if he could somehow stay healthy? I mean, who knows, right? I if you do, that's a bonus, right? I think what was he, a 6th-round pick, 7th-round pick? Obviously, as a prospect coming out of high school, he was, one of the most highly touted tight end prospects in the country. Then he went into college and he suffered a ton of injuries. He got hurt again this year. So I'm leaning like he's probably not going to be much of a contributor for the Giants, but who knows? I mean, you never know, right? There's tons of tight ends that get drafted late that are big time contributors. You look at the best tight ends in the league. George Kittle, I think, was a 4th-round pick. The majority of tight ends around the league are not 1st or 2nd-round picks that are, the upper echelon tight ends. So who knows? You never know. He has talent, but injuries and so on and so forth, I think there's a good chance it may derail him. JL says, Big Blue Banter just interviewed Ravens YouTuber, said Linderbaum not close to worth $20+ million. He will get, said he'd give him a C rating. Well, JL, most free agents are usually going to get a C rating, right? Or at best a B rating. Because if you have an A rating or an A+ rating, you're likely not going to hit free agency. That's why in an ideal scenario, you don't want to build through free agency. You want to use free agency to retain the players that you drafted that are doing a good job. That's what the best teams do. And you sprinkle in and signing here and there to build your team. But most of the time, C plus players are going to be near the top of the market in free agency, because if they were A plus players, the teams wouldn't let them go. So that's probably accurate. That's probably accurate. Let's see. Harker says, Chris, what type of quarterback do you prefer? A pocket quarterback who masters full field reads, or a backyard quarterback that does more pure progressions? I mean, I ideally I want a guy that could do both. I want a guy that could improvise, but if you're asking me what my ideal quarterback is, it's not Kyler Murray. It's not Lamar Jackson, as tremendous as he is. It's a guy that could win consistently from the pocket and can make moves with his legs when he needs to. That could scramble and make plays, could make plays off script, can improvise. Pat Mahomes is a perfect example of what I'm describing, right? He could win from the pocket. He's got a dynamic arm. He could make plays with his legs when he needs to. He could extend plays, but is my ideal quarterback a guy that needs to use his legs to reach his full potential? No. Me personally, no. I'd prefer a guy that could win from the pocket and can use his legs as a weapon when need be. Like Caleb Williams, for example. I think he's that type of prospect, like Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. I don't think it's rare to have both. I think there's plenty of quarterbacks in the NFL now that basically any young quarterback prospect that are coming into today's NFL, the majority of them at least have some mobility. Jackson Dart has mobility. Old Drake May has mobility. Caleb Williams has mobility. Justin Herbert has mobility. Trevor Lawrence has some mobility. I think the majority of quarterbacks can move. They're not Lamar Jackson, but the majority of quarterbacks can move in today's NFL. Let's see. Agreed, but Linderbaum will get top of the market money and is viewed as a top center. Well, he probably is. I mean, I'd have to look at a list, but he probably is among the top center free agents. That doesn't mean he's a top center in the league. Let's see. DJ says, hey, Chris, question. What's your thoughts on the Giants not tanking? I mean, as a fan, I understand. I understand getting to the point as a fan where it is in the best interest of the team to lose games, obviously, okay? I will never cheer on a loss, but I will understand the benefits that come from one. I wouldn't have been upset if the Giants lost the last two games, being honest. If they would have ended up with the first pick, yeah, that's incredibly valuable. That being said, I'm never going to get mad at players for going out there and trying to win a football game. At the end of the day, that's what they're paid to do. And the players aren't, and the coach as well. Like, Brian Dable. Well, Brian Dable wasn't there at the end, but Mike Kafka, for example, he's coaching for his next potential job, whether that be to stay on with the New York Giants or, get a job elsewhere in the offseason. So I'm never going to get mad at players or coaches for going out there and trying to win games late in the season, regardless of where the team's at. It's out of my control. I'm not going to get bent out of shape if the team wins, but I'm also going to acknowledge if they lose, okay, yeah, that's probably in the best long-term interest of the team to ensure that we get a better draft pick. But I'm never going to get upset at players or coaches, for not intentionally trying to lose football games. Let's see. But guys, I am going to call it quits. I had a lot of fun coming on here talking with you guys. I do have to get up early for work tomorrow. I got to get up at 5. I usually get up at 5:45, 6 o'clock. So I got to get up early tomorrow, but appreciate all you guys. A lot of people requested me to go live tonight. Obviously, huge news for the New York Giants. Figured I'd pop on, talk Harbaugh with you guys. We talked that for about, 45 minutes, an hour, and then we got into just general football conversation. Had a lot of fun being on here with you guys. And then as far as, and you're the man too, G-Man, man, appreciate you, man. Somebody in the chat said, can we expect more? Yeah. Don't ever expect me to get back to the point where I'm full-time YouTube. I mean, I'll never say never. It could happen, I suppose, but I don't plan on that. But yes, yes, expect more. Expect some sprinkled in video content, and definitely, the occasional live stream throughout the off season and in season, more than obviously this season where there wasn't much outside of calling the game. So I'm excited. I'm excited about Harbaugh. I'm excited about the direction of this team. Since really that 40-0 game to the Cowboys, that was just like a gut punch. And since then, it's been awful. Like, it just feels like anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Constant bickering and fighting in the fan base, understandably so. But be happy, man. I think there's legitimate reason for hope now by getting John Harbaugh. I do. I really do believe this team is headed down the right path now. I feel like we have the right leader. I feel like he's going to get this team back to being competitive and competing to win the NFC East, similar to that of what Tom Coughlin did. I'm excited. I really am. I'm excited. I think that this team is in a good spot now that we got our guy. We got we got what we hope is our quarterback, and we got what we know is our coach. So appreciate all you guys. Be excited. I can't wait for New York Giants football this season. Be good, guys.